cutting-edge guests, awesome, uncensored, jaw-dropping information, plus funny memes, good deeds, and loads of laughter. Kind of have it all. Ladies and gentlemen, if your soul's awake, then welcome, because you're in the right place. Welcome back, you Divine Lions and Lionesses. This is a massive Monday special exclusive with Juan O'Savin, who'll be bringing you incredible intel on the FAFO going on with the deep state. What is next with Tina Peters? He sent me a document that was shared with President Trump just 2 days ago. I don't believe it's seen the light of day. We're going to be showing you what is next and coming up with regards to the election as well. Gitmo tribunals plan for the 51st state, the Monroe Doctrine, our golden age, law of war manual, the strategies being played out, Venezuela, our ascension, and much, much more. And remember, this is the man who said in August that silver would be $50 an ounce by the end of summer, because this spells winning around the world. But we cannot stop. We cannot be complacent. We must lean in. We must demand justice around the world for the children, the vaccine genocide, the crimes against humanity, the stolen elections, the election rigging, and wipe out the cabal, the deep state, the British monarchy, and these reptilians everywhere. Stay tuned for the live stream. Share this with patriots you know all across the planet, and we'll be with you soon. And that soon is now. And I want to thank all of you, Divine Lions, Lionesses, for your patience. I'm your host, Brad Wozni. If you're brand new with us, and thanks to this man in part, we're back on YouTube now as well. This is the Sovereign Soul Show. And of course, the creed is love, levity, and liberty. We also have to stay vigilant. It doesn't mean spiritual bypass. And of course, that's why we have the Bling Buddha over my shoulder, firing red pills of awakening from his 9 mil. And I want to take a moment before I bring Juan on, who we've been having a lengthy pre-chat backstage, and just wanted everybody to acknowledge the men and the women who have gone before us, who are still here today, even though they took an oath of service back then to be in uniform or in the form of government under God. Well, they're still doing so. And a couple of those men, Juan being one of them, like Lieutenant General McInerney, who flew 407 combat missions across 4 tours in Vietnam, who had lost his own brother in the 1st Armored Division, a Captain McInerney, inside that first tour of Vietnam. And he had lost his twin brother just 6 months after they graduated together, West Point Military Academy. And General McInerney, not only does he have the Order of the Rising Sun from Imperial Honor from Japan, but that man is still at 88 today sending it. And we did a commander's call. It was incredible. I was invited to it once again, that he led last week, some incredible admirals and generals, and General McInerney and General Paul E. Valley, Major General, U.S. Army retired, with Stand Up America U.S. Foundation. Those are men who exemplify service, just like Juan does as well. For those of you who don't know, Kid by the Side of the Road, the links are below the description. This is one of Juan's amazing books, beautiful. This is the signature on one of my books of his from a number of years ago, and we had a chance to first meet, and Juan confirmed to the world what I was witness and privy to from my corporate time, when I was then taken to the Pentagon, and then I was 18 stories below it, shortly, a few days after the missile was shot into it. And we have all those emails, and yes, that's a picture of me at the podium 12 minutes after Rumsfeld gave one of his famous daily press conference updates. And this is a man we're going to be talking about, Free Tina Peters, right off the bat. He is leading the charge, as I would say, along with some amazing patriots, to free Tina. And we have so much to cover in the next hour or so. So thank you all for being here. And Juan, welcome back. Thank you, sir, for all you do. And mahalo nui lao. Appreciate you being there.
Yeah.
Beautiful countryside with that image for everybody to enjoy.
Well, yeah, this is one of my favorite spots up here. They actually have a Japanese coffee company. A friend of mine was part of the group that created the Kona Coffee franchise and Growers Association like that. And he's buried up behind my right shoulder here on a beautiful gravesite up there. And beautiful people. In fact, I was mentioning to you before, he was one of the Japanese Americans who family went into an internment camp, and he fought with the American forces, Japanese unit in Europe in World War II. And so pretty amazing stories. And of course, we talked about some of the things behind the scenes. You know, I just wrote a article or, you know, note to the people that have, you know, I have a list of people that have bought stuff over at gumroad.com. And so I, once in a while, will send out a letter or something. And during this situation with Tina Peters, I've tried to send something every few days with an update. And so I wrote a note talking about the Battle of the Bulge, the prelude to it, and events that happened during it, and the heroes, individual and groups that were just amazing. And what triggered it, by the way, the reason I wrote that specific article is because Peter Tickton was on who's Tina Peters' lead counsel now. Trennis Evans and I were able to prevail on him to take the lead with other attorneys that were already on the case, but to take the lead on Tina Peters' case, you know, 6-7 months ago. And but he was in an interview with Bannon the other day, and they talked about having the 101st Airborne go free Tina from prison there in Colorado. A little bit of tongue in cheek, not completely necessarily. And so I thought I'd kind of write about the early days of 101st Airborne, which was created during World War II. And they're known as the Screaming Eagles. And their motto is Rendezvous with Destiny. And so I wrote a little something there, and I'm sure people will post it out over the net, but I send it exclusively to my customers out at Gumroad, which have a pretty good sized mailing list. And I wanted to put Tina's situation into that context. And so rather than mess it up for those that want to read it, I'll let it speak for itself. And you know, I always put something in there because it is a customer list, and mentioned the fact that I've got silver, the proof quality coins that Jen and I do, and we're just about done with the 2025s. I have one shipment. All right, there we go. I had a call coming in, and StreamYard, by the way, doesn't allow me to screen calls, and so you know, unless I'm on internet thing and I'm on a phone thing. So if I do get a call in, and I get a lot of calls, it might glitch for a second. It's because there's a call coming in, so I apologize.
All good. Thank you. I'm showing the website here, Juan. By the way, the Gitmo coin, the Magador is amazing. Everybody.
Yeah, and because it's proof quality, you don't compare it with a spot price or circulated, uncirculated. I'm actually just $1 or $2 under what the proof quality Silver Eagles is, and as soon as I do this next order, I'll have to up the prices again. But for the moment, they're a great deal over there. And if you're buying single coins, just go over to the Jennifer Mack, and she's got those. And I do kind of a little bit more, 2 or more coins over there. I'm going to try to give the very best price we can. So anyway, as an aside, there's the commercial. But Tina, she's, when I started hard to push again, and a number of groups, a number of us have pushed numerous times on Tina's situation, especially since Trump's been back in office. And behind the scenes, we had an understanding, an agreement where Tina was going to be free on or before her birthday. And at the last second, that got nixed inside the Justice Department. And literally with no warning or whatever, it was a very upsetting thing because a number of us involved were fairly comfortable that this was a done. And of course, for Tina, she was aware that we were pretty confident within her legal team like that this was a done deal. So when she gets to her birthday and then doesn't get out, that was very deflating. And we thought in the days immediately after that we would still get this resolved. And here we are, um, uh, 3 months later, and she's still no hope. And in fact, the governor of Colorado has made it excruciatingly clear a couple of times this last week that he has no intention of doing anything to free Tina or do any cooperative agreement with the Justice Department. And by the way, where the Justice Department looks like they've lost their way, they believed that they had situations where uh, there was an understanding and agreement with them and state of Colorado. And at the last minute, state of Colorado kept moving the bar a little bit. And so I don't completely throw the Justice Department people under, the tires on this stuff, but they have options that they could do, and they have chosen not to do them. The president has been given a number of options, including by his friend Peter Tickton, to be able to get Tina free, because she is crashing, in my opinion, medically. And, she's a cancer survivor, had lung cancer, had a third of her right lung removed. Yeah. And the circumstances in the prison are really, it sounds like I'm trying to amp it up or something, but the conditions in the prison are really, they're illegal. The temperatures are very low. Who's paying the bills? Well, these are private prisons, a lot of them. I don't know what the situation on this one is, but literally somebody went to her cell some time ago, and after the door had been opened to the main area for several minutes, they took a temperature and it was like 54 degrees. Well, when the door was closed, it's not getting circulation. It's down in the mid 40s. And, as you get older, your skin gets thinner. And so you wear a sweater when everybody else doesn't. You might wear a taller collar, etc., more comfortable, warmer shoes. And it's not because you're, a wuss or anything like that. It's part of, natural. Your thin gets skinnier as you get older. Right. And you tend to need a little bit more covering. Well, Tina's in there with, people a third of her age or less. And they keep these temperatures down. They're able to kind of take it. But, at night, the blankets you have, you only get a blanket. And it's like a piece of paper towel. It's so thin. It doesn't hold the heat in. Before we're all done in this administration and after, prison reform and the way that they're administered has got to move to the top of the list. And there's so many things wrong with, and I've had other people in the system all through the country at different times. One of them, Irwin Schiff, on the taxes, and illegally arrested, prosecuted, paid informants that lied in their testimony, and fighting through on that. He passed away in prison, and he was always upbeat, but it, is a very grinding thing, and some of the complaints he had were just, you wonder, how can this happen in America? I don't care. I don't care that they're in prison. We don't treat people this way. He, in his 70s, they gave him what they laughingly call diesel therapy. So they moved him around from prison to prison to prison. His stuff isn't with him, so he can't write. He can't have his notes. Everything has to be sent forward. You got to pay to move it forward. And they gave him diesel therapy for about 4 months, where he was moved all over, hopscotch all over America. You're sitting in a bus. It's hard. They move you into a room to transport you at 4 o'clock in the morning. They don't move you till 9. They drive you to wherever they're going to get to. You don't get admitted. You don't get into a bed until 10 that night. And it may only be temporary because you're going 4 states away or something, and they stop you 2 or 3 nights in a row. It is grinding for any person. It's especially grinding for somebody at that age. And they did it solely because they wanted to make a point, and they wanted him to suffer, and they were hoping he was going to die in custody, which he did. And that's what they want for Tina. Tina is a threat. So, sorry, I hadn't. So,
all good.
Tina's a threat to the machine in Colorado. Is the home state of Dominion. That's where they have their corporate headquarters at. So they couldn't let Tina embarrass them on the home turf.
Yeah. Dominion in Venezuela and Venezuela. Juan, did you want me to show the letter that you shared with me? Do you want to talk about that? You referenced Peter Tickton already. Okay, wonderful.
Yep.
And Peter Tickton's also helping out so many other patriots. So is Trennis. Trennis and Peter Tickton together, and Trennis being the CEO and Don Jr. being on the board of that amazing organization. Incredible. So
that's American Rights Alliance, and
that's right.
And they've done a little bit of a shift up where, because Trennis has his own radio show now, right. And there's some different things going on legally. He still is an associate there to American Rights Alliance, but he's actually running an independent operation. So he's still tied in there and with Peter like that. And for people that don't know, Peter Tickton, he's a very close friend of President Trump's. He's a New York attorney. And in fact, Peter Tickton, to give you an idea how long he goes back with President Trump, and they talk, frequently through the week, every week. Peter Tickton was sitting 2 desks away from President Trump when the announcement came over the intercom at the military academy that they were both students in, that President Kennedy had been shot. So that's how long they've known each other.
Wow. Yeah, I heard 50 years. That bumps that up. My goodness, to Kennedy's assassination announcement. Holy smokes. Wow.
Yep.
Wow. So this letter.
Fact, well, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, please.
Say, Trump gave Tickton his first promotion. And so they go back a long way, from the military school, stuff and like that. There's just a lot of story there, but for another day. So anyway, but the letter.
The letter here dated December 6th, and it's several pages, 9 pages total. Soup to nuts for everybody. We're not going to read all 9 pages, but this is from Peter to President Trump from the Tickton Law Group. Would you like to summarize the letter, Juan, for everybody here?
Yes. And it'll be all over the internet, I'm sure, as the day goes on. I sent it out pretty broadly yesterday.
Oh, good. I wasn't aware of
it. I did want people to get a chance to read it. And it's essentially a private letter, but knowing that it was going to be public also. But it President Trump, just to give you kind of a zone, he can't do things in a complete vacuum. And so there has to be some things that are kind of discoverable or known or whatever in things that he may do related to, say, a pardon or something. And so in a normal situation, you have to do a workup. Why does this person qualify for a pardon? What's the extenuating circumstance? Are they going to be an asset to society after the fact? All sorts of little things. Who's vouching for them? Whatever. So what's the basis on which the president can act, and why is he the only person at this point, or the best person to act in a situation? So what Peter does is he lays out the history of pardons in America. He lays out the history of Tina Peters' actions and how she finds herself in this plight, and what was done uh, correctly or incorrectly in her case in the courts, for example. What new information may exist that, yes, it can go through the court process and she'll be vindicated, most likely, yet in her case, it's 70 years old with health issues. Sure, she'll get vindicated after she's dead and buried, or after the damage is so extreme from her current situation that she only has a short time left to enjoy life in this world, or not, because of the consequences of damage to her body and like that. So he lays that out and then gives President Trump the bases on which he can act in her behalf legally, what legally gives him authority to act in this situation. Then the president has to decide to do it. Now, I know that the president's been given big portions of what was there at earlier times, and both verbally and in written form. Yeah. And he has posted on Tina's behalf and basically, threatened the governor of Colorado and the system. And the governor of Colorado, as I said this last week, was very decisive that he isn't doing anything. He has no intention to do anything in Tina Peters' case. And so she can rot in jail, essentially. So, the Justice Department thought they had an agreement with Colorado to release her into federal custody for other things. It was a request. It wasn't a demand as such. Colorado could have agreed to it. They decided not to. And so she was not released into the federal system, and they've let known that they have no intention of releasing her into the federal system, short of some type of court order, et cetera. That, usually these things are done as a, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. It helps. One moment.
All good.
All right. Sorry about that.
No
and so Colorado has no desire, because when Tina gets into this next phase, that I don't think it's an overstatement to say that heads are going to roll in Colorado. In fact, without letting anything out that's not correct for the moment, or not correct, but not yet publicly acknowledged, there is a situation with testimony involved. Remember when we got the word from Justice Department that the inquiries into operations in Colorado were switching into a criminal investigation? Remember when that happened? 7-8 months ago.
2 months ago,
yeah. Well, it's quite a while ago. They, just that the inquiries related to election matters were switching into a criminal investigative phase. And so when you have criminal investigations, reports, et cetera, that eventually ends up a prosecutor decides to present to a grand jury, do an indictment, et cetera, seeking an indictment. And so enough time has elapsed. Don't be surprised that you hear that key people in Colorado are now going to be in the situation that Tina's in. Excellent. Or headed that direction. So, yeah, but till it happens, it happens when it happens. And a lot of times, they'll get an indictment and a prosecutor will decide not to present the indictment immediately because they're looking at further evidence. They don't want to let the investigation get ahead of them, or the prosecution get ahead of their investigation. So they might get an indictment on a player or two and choose not to serve it immediately while they continue to, go the rest of the way in the trail. And but nobody should be under any delusion that things are evolving in Colorado, and that many of the people that have been involved in pushing that Tina go through this whole trial and everything else under false charges, etc., that they themselves will be having to explain themselves. So that's coming, but that doesn't free Tina directly.
No, it doesn't.
And so the new information, and then the singular person at this moment that's in a position to do anything is President Trump. There's stuff that could be done over at Justice Department, but there's other issues there. In fact, let me just go there for 1 second.
Please.
I've said it to numerous audiences. I think I said it to your audience, that at the end of the day, what we're really witnessing here in America is something different than almost anybody else has stayed on point on. I've talked about, even in the book and long before that, for literally several decades, but especially this last decade, about the fact that senior executive service is the real monster under the bed. They are this shadow government operation. Every time Cheney had a fake heart attack, he'd kid about the fact that he was running the shadow government, but he wasn't actually completely kidding at all. Wow. The SIGI operation, continuing government operation, that is taking place, that is supposedly saving America from our enemies, as though America's been taken over and they have to protect us, is this SES operation. And what happens with SES, the largest agency of government most people have never heard of, is they will take FBI agents, CIA, every agency of Homeland Security, and they will put directors, deputy directors, people down through the ranks on their payroll. And the idea is that if we were, let's say, attacked by an enemy and infiltrated by an enemy, then you would have the right people to go to bring services back online. If a big bomb drops somewhere in America and we were all in confusion, who reorganizes the country and gets us moving, working, keeps lives going? Can you think of it as a form of FEMA after disaster, trying to bring order back into things, if that was possible with FEMA. And so Senior Executive Service has been doing this continuing government operation. And what their role is they're supposed to bring stability, coherency between elected administrations. What they've actually become is the government, no matter who's elected, as though they're running everything, which they are. And so when you understand that Trump and the people behind him are fighting this shadow government, things start to fall into place. 9/11 wasn't run by, people from outside the country, other places. It was done in collusion with other agencies from other countries, and some of them being NATO people and bankers and families and all sorts of things. A much larger operation than most people fully understood. But it wasn't just 9/11. That's the one that you remember the most. It's things like the Maui fires and the Palisades Paradise fires. It's Oklahoma City. numerous operations of, you know, of even Sandy Hook, things that have been dismissed in certain ways. It's my contention that, and I'm allowed to have an opinion, fortunately, that much of this is actually SES operations, and that over time we will see that more and more clearly. You know, Trump said when standing in New York at the rubble of the towers, when he was candidate back in 2016, he said, "Before I'm done, we will know exactly who brought these buildings down."
Yep.
And in fact, I was just talking with folks the other day out of New York. There was, you know, a push to want to have Mandami call for another 9/11 commission type thing and to call on Trump. That's bullshit to start from, and I've made it very clear for some time, is the fire. There's a handful of command level fire personnel, and there's families that are survivors. They need to call on the mayor to prevail on President Trump to order that a presidential commission be empowered to look at 9/11 and other similar situations. And the reason it has to be a presidential commission is because the authority to look at military tools, weapons, things that no federal investigative commission would have access to, or the scientists, engineers to be able to understand. You're going to have to involve military intelligence assets and reports and technology understanding in order to get to the bottom of 9/11 and the Maui and Paradise Palisades fires and 100 other fires that have occurred around the planet using the same directed energy technology. That will require that you have access to military tools, locations, reports, etc. It's the only way you're going to do it. Satellites, etc. No governor, no federal investigative homeland security thing would have access to those reports or the authority to appoint a commission who would have legal access to them, except for the president, commander in chief. And so the proper place for those firefighters and their families to go is going to be to the president. I can include the new mayor of New York. And why would that be valid? Because certain scapegoats were made to do the heavy lifting, such as Saudi Arabia, etc., and they didn't do it. Not the way that it's presented. And so much of the Muslim stuff, including going into Afghanistan and Iraq, complete bullshit. And everybody in any significant location knows that's true. These were covers for other things that some of these people in power wanted to accomplish. So with that in mind, we need a serious investigation to get to the true culprits. And some of it is going to be uncomfortable. But one additional thing, look at the situation with the priests and the pedophilia. And it's not just in the Catholic Church, it's all through the Protestant churches too. There's numerous examples where people got into positions of power and coaches and all sorts of things. And then, and it's both male and female, by the way, female predators also. They're there. Just because they're in that position is not representative. They seek areas where they have some level of implied trust, or within a business community, etc. wherever the investigations go, reflection on any particular race or political or social group, even with what's going on over at SES, they're apolitical. They have rhinos and they have Democrats, and they accomplish what they're going to accomplish in their continuity and government operations. And it doesn't matter who you are. If you're of some value to them, it's like the devil himself. He'll take the white hat and the black hat if it does what he needs it to do to accomplish his purposes. So, yeah.
If I can just, there's a couple of points I just want to recap for people here, Juan, who may not be fully up to speed on.
Oh, and here, just a second. I have a. Let me
Yep.
let me come back to you in just a half a moment. I have an emergency call I have to take.
Go right ahead.
I'll just hang on. I'll switch off this line. I'll be right back.
Copy that. So what Tina Peters, everybody, what's also taken place here in just the last several weeks, I mean, over the last several months, she has been attacked not once, not twice, but 3 times, where guards have had to pull other inmates off of her. This woman has turned 70 years old and is a cancer survivor who, remember, Gold Star mother, whose Navy SEAL son was killed in action. And they took her husband away from her before they threw her in jail. And so nobody's allowed to see her. They put her in the hole, put her in solitary. She's literally almost freezing to death from the reports. And other inmates have verbally threatened to stab her to death. That has been recorded. FBI investigators went in there, have verified such with interviews. And at the prison, she has been requested multiple times. The letter from Peter Tickton to President Trump here that I showed on the screen. And of course, this is the 9th page. We'll go back, but it also says, and we'll have this posted shortly after the show up on the social media so you can all see the letter, download it, and share this. That 6 times she was denied to go into the unit in the prison, which is basically like the white collar crime unit, all the nice and easy going, you don't have the violent criminals. No, that's where they've stuck her. So at 70 years old, all she is guilty of, that in their eyes, is doing her job and calling out election irregularities, election fraud. She has been completely denied. And yes, for Kim in Wisconsin in the YouTube chat, we must save her life. Absolutely. There are so many things that need to be done for so many persecuted patriots as well. And Sina, who's in the Rumble chat, you've called the White House. Thank you. And your crooked congressman multiple times. What else can you do? Keep telling people about this. Keep sharing this show. Let them know. Share the message. Share the fact that we still have to band together to erase the deep state. And yeah, Ronan, I agree. You know, it's when Juan had told me that a few weeks ago in a text, you know, my thoughts were, that's it. Let's just bring in tier 1 assets and let's do it at a level where it'll be benevolent and peaceful. But what this letter sets up is that President Trump has the authority now to pardon, based on legal precedents, to pardon Tina Peters, because it's not at the federal level. It's considered at the state level, Colorado. And in my interpretation, these are freaking war crimes anyway, that they have been torturing her and other prisoners. That's a form of torture that you just heard. Mark Grennan's sons. What did they do? Well, it looks like all they did was share chlorine dioxide solution. They threw Mark and his 2 sons, missionaries, in jail. He's finally out. They're still in prison for simply being there to heal people. And this goes everywhere too. Canada. Look at what they did to Daniel Warren Oak. Yeah, yoy. Other patriots standing up. Pastor Derek Reimer right now in Calgary. Pastor Artur Pawlowski multiple times. It has not stopped. So just keep it up. Keep getting more people going. I'll give you the White House number. It's saved in my phone when I call the White House. And here's that number, and I'll make sure it's in the chat after the fact. Juan, people are asking for the White House number again. So I'm just going to read it out to everybody, saved in my phone for my multiple calls. The White House phone number, the line, by the way, is open from 10 a.m. Eastern to 3 p.m. Eastern, Monday to Friday. So 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. 202-456-1111, 202-456-1111. You call the White House, you get the comment line, and you voice your support for Tina Peters, freeing Tina Peters, freeing Mark Grennan's sons, turning this around. But keep going and sharing it. All right, Juan, you're back in the car. Thank you, sir.
Hey, sorry about that. Yeah, no, my battery was getting low, and so I didn't want to lose you. But so we'll let it charge up for a minute. Tina, what the deal is that she's got this cough back that's like she had when she first got cancer. First they said, it's, you got COVID, or you got common, cold and all that other stuff. Here's an aspirin. And the short version is that our concern is that the cancer's back again, and we want to deal with it as quickly as possible. The problem is that the things she's accused of were not actually crimes, as Peter Tickton details in his letter to President Trump. She was convicted of something that's not even a crime that she had the authority to do.
Yeah, and literally doing her job.
And they had to shop through all of this stuff to even come up with a way to proceed with the trial. The judge just went completely off the rails. One of the things that I think is as important as anything in this whole case, the judge said in the sentencing that he was giving her the most that he could give her in the sentencing that the law would allow as punishment for her being so outspoken. Now, you have a First Amendment right. Doesn't matter who you are. You have the right to say certain things. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater, but you have very extensive First Amendment rights. The judge essentially said, I'm going to sentence you to the maximum that I can possibly do because you're talking. And you're a threat to society because you're talking, essentially saying that she was a threat to society because she's yelling fire in a crowd. Election of long. And by the way, if you yell fire in the theater, the fire, okay. She was yelling fire because there really was a fire. She wasn't crying wolf, and now we're getting all the documentation. We had it at the time, but it's becoming fuller out by the day. And so the reason that we want and believe that we're correct to ask President Trump to is because Tina will win her appeals. She's got an appeal coming in mid-January, but it may take a while before they decide how to rule on that appeal. Could be months. She had a habeas corpus hearing a couple months back, and we thought we'd get things resolved there. But the judge has been slow to rule. And part of it is because he got presented with an amicus brief by Tor Mars, which some people really got mad that Tor put this amicus in. But it basically says she has an Eighth Amendment right to do certain things and a First Amendment right that was being supported by that, and she's being denied her constitutional rights. Tina's being denied. If Tor hadn't brought those up, they wouldn't be part of any decision. That's to protect all Americans against judges who do this. So I think Tor, who's a very good friend, did exactly. I want to criticize her for not thinking about the bigger picture. Case was unique, clear. If you didn't do it here, when were you going to do it next? You're all presented with these problems, and it's a first impression thing. The courts must decide on this, and it's 22 for the courts, because if they decide that her rights were violated, they have to go back and do it all over again. Tina's out. They got to decide if they want to go through another trial. They'll never win another trial. They know that, because we won't be. We have new information now that'll shut it down before it ever gets there. And the information was cut off from the grand jury, was cut off from the jury by the judge in her criminal trial. They won't get away with the same mischief this time around. So, this is really a make or break thing. And knowing that Tina's going to win her appeal eventually, President Trump can step in and buy time for those other things to proceed. By different ways, he can step in, and stop it all. He can step in and move her to some federally protected position while these other things play through, and she's available as a witness on these other cases. How exactly President Trump proceeds, that's for him. And by the way, forget the Justice Department, forget all of these other things. If, as I've explained to audiences numerous times over the last many months, President Trump declares a national election emergency, within the context of that national election emergency, he can take action in Tina Peters' case, which allows her still to go back and sue the fuck out of every last one of these pieces of shit for their actions against her, and but be out of their control completely during this national election emergency. And I believe that's exactly what Trump's intending to do and what he's been holding for on the timing. Tina's case and other things cannot be the determinant factor in the date of that announcement, and then also the action that he's going to do with an executive order concerning the 2026 elections and beyond, and how we'll conduct those. Trump's going to go to a hand count paper ballot, and no machines at all involved anywhere, nothing. And over the last many months, all the way to the beginning of this term, there have been people in the White House directly associated with them, where he said he's going to go to a hand count paper ballot, who have been fighting him. Well, you need this machine. You need to let them have a machine here. You need to let this group have a machine. It's the edge of the camel's tent. Trump is not going to allow machines all 2026 election. He's going to order that the voter rolls start from scratch, start from zero. We're not going to try to fix the existing voter rolls. You show up with ID, government issued, and register to vote, and sign on the dotted line on your voter registration card under penalty of perjury, and it's witnessed by a clerk in your county, who then notarizes that they've seen the documentation, that you're actually who you say you are, you live where you say you're going to live. And if it turns out later that you lied, you're going to get convicted for voter fraud. And the existing voter rolls are too corrupted to fix. You got a number of people, I know several of them, that want to go in and do what Eric promised to do, which is this voter verification system. It's a complete fraud, financed by Soros people a couple layers back. Trump knows what he's going to do, and the date of that execution is coming. The problem is that you only have so much runway till the 2026 election. So you've got to do what you're going to do fairly quickly. You can't wait forever.
Well, I thank you for that, Juan, because, the Dominion systems, as we well know, whether it's in Venezuela, China, now I repeat, everybody's calling Canada Venezuela, which I think is very apt as well, is all across the world. And those are all fraudulent installs. We've got a couple Canadians in the chat here talking about the Freedom Convoy as well. So thank you all for Patriots. And part of our segment, everybody remember, in the reel and also on the agenda, is Monroe Doctrine, the whispers of the 51st state plan. Before we get there, especially from a justice standpoint, Juan, we've been talking about, and what we definitely need to see is some justice for a lot, including Tina as well. And you've been on other shows kind of giving a little bit of an update on Gitmo Tribunals. And a lot of people don't know there's other places around the world, but Gitmo seems to have the nice public YMCA tie-in recognition. So we'll just kind of when we say Gitmo, we'll just kind of expand it to every other military facility, whether it's, in Greenland, maybe to Guam and other places around the world that are controlled by the
Guam and
American
Diego
military.
Garcia.
Yeah,
Guam and Diego Garcia. In fact, the Guam location, what's been built out in Guam is stunning, and it's somebody's expecting something pretty large for a reason. Just to give you a scale, though,
please. Yeah.
Think about this: the entire fraud of the COVID virus was foisted on the world in order to be a cover to allow them to complete this Tholian web, a Star Trek term. Go back and watch the episode if you're not old enough to remember it. They were building a Tholian web around the world from which you would never break free if they completed it, as Spock said. Once completed, you'll never be able to break free. We don't have the technology. You will be enslaved and encompassed by this web permanently. So you have to do a breakout before it's impossible to break out. And by the way, just a little side thought, it's not out of step to mention something like the Tholian web. In the early stages of the operation, to create a moment where, with legal authority, a reversal of the coup, not a reverse coup, a reversal of the coup that was completed at the time of President Kennedy's assassination and this takeover, this hijacking of the American government. Those people involved in that grew up in that era of Star Trek, in those types of scenarios. So using a term where a whole show, 50 minutes of theater on TV that they all got, most of these players were 10, 12, 13, 14, 15 at the time that show first came out, or they watched reruns. I actually remember watching the very first Star Trek episode at a relative's house during some kind of a family get together or whatever, and I was off to the side and watched that first episode, and because I knew it was coming, I wanted to see it, I wanted to absorb it, and so I'm off in my own world watching it, and it was a very interesting episode, and it was this kid that's really a kid that's older, looks older, that takes over everything in their operations, has this advanced technology, and then wants to be friends. Anyway, that group grew up around Star Trek, so a lot of times you're trying to say something and you don't have time for the 1 hour conversation. But if you've both got a shared history, experience, reading, etc., you can say one sentence and it encompasses that whole hour of a show and the conclusion of it. So when I say Tholian web, people that grew up in that era that had this shared experience of Star Trek within a decade or so, they know in just a couple of words something that I need to convey, and I only have to take a sentence to do so. And so it's what we call a transistorized conversation. It's highly compact. The radios, I remember in the 50s and even into the early 60s, the tubes and the radios and the TVs. If the TV broke and you didn't want to take it to a TV repair shop. I remember taking a box of the tubes from the TV,
Mm-hmm.
out the back of the TV,
Yep.
and taking like
Cathode
4, 5,
ray and
6
everything.
tubes,
Yeah.
going to a store in the area that happened to have a tube testing machine, and it had all these different places for all the different tubes, like 30 different tubes you could put in there or something. And then you matched the pins on the bottom of your tube to that thing, and you put it in and push the button, and it would say good or bad. Okay. And you could test all of your tubes, find out which one was wrong. Then the one that was bad, you'd buy the box with that tube. You'd go back home, put everything back in with the new tube, and voila, your TV worked.
Yeah. I remember that in not shop class, electric class. We had to do that one. We and our home when we started, we also had the ears, the rabbit ears on the TV.
Oh yeah,
black and white. Or watching.
Hold on to the rabbit ear, don't move.
CBC Canada, black and white or whatnot. And still, had to go up to the TV, pull the tube, turn it to power it on, turn it up for volume, and manually press the channels. I mean, it was tough work, but somebody did it.
Oh
right?
my gosh, yeah. I mean, foil on the rabbit ears.
Yeah, exactly. And when the rain came in, a storm would come in or a blizzard would come in. Good luck. Good luck.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I could tell stories. One of my very, very, very close friends growing up was one of the great TV manufacturers on the planet. Whoa. And went up against the big guys and actually became the 4th largest TV manufacturer in the world for a period of time. He's the guy that invented the term TV. Oh, but amazing. Beautiful, beautiful guy. And I learned so much from him. Miss him, think about him almost every day. Yep. But his whole goal was to bring down the price of TVs so that the average person could actually own them in a very Henry Ford type of way. Right. He didn't want the cars so expensive. As Ford said, he wanted everybody that worked for him to be able to own a TV or own a car. And so the prices, everything about the manufacturing had to be such that they could, afford what they were working on.
That's amazing.
And when he accomplished that, then he really. But back to Tina.
Yep, and Guam.
Her situation. In Tina's situation, she is, in a medical term, she's crashed.
Yep.
Her health, once you reach a certain point, then it can cascade out of control very quickly. And so it's very important to not let it reach that point of no return. Sorry about that. There we go.
That's your friend's great.
So,
friend's great fight?
No, that was just somebody else. And of course, you see right now, there's a lot of people who've been up here. I dropped off flowers yesterday at my friend's site. This last weekend is kind of a special thing here, leading up to today, December 7th.
Right, that's right.
With the attack at Pearl Harbor. And so, many people have been here. Usually they come in the early morning on December 7th, and it's got so much of a tie to Hawaii in a more generic sense even than just the attack date. But, it affected the Japanese population so radically here in Hawaii, where, this was a protectorate and many Japanese lived and continue to live. This area that I'm in right now is probably realistically half Japanese families. And so, of course, my wife is half Japanese too. So anyway, but Tina, her situation is in very real terms crashing because, for example, they supposedly have random drug tests. Okay, so Tina's a danger to have drug tests. She's been tested more than just about anybody else in the whole prison. It's just bullshit. And when they do that, you think, oh, it's just a thing. No, you have to go wait in a place. There's no seats. You got to sit on the floor. It's a cold concrete floor. You got to wait till they get your turn. Amazingly, for whatever reason, they move you before they need you because it's for their convenience. And you just have to sit there for 4 or 5 hours. And then when they finally get to you, you got to pee in the cup. And they don't want you to eat anything or do other stuff before they get you there. And then, you know, you have to wait to be taken back to the main area or cell or whatever. It's just bullshit. They've want to punish you, and they think it's their job to make it as uncomfortable every moment of the day.
Convention. Yeah, you can't do that under the Geneva Convention or prisoner of war laws whatsoever for anybody that they think they can get away with it inside a prison inside the continental United States of America. And they are right now. They're
getting away with it. That's why prison reform before this is over is going to be so absolutely crucial. And I've got a number of people that have personal experience that would be glad to come in and help and feel a personal obligation need to help in that way for the ones that are still there. And there's plenty of people in prison that need to be there. But, you take somebody that's already damaged and problems and everything else and reinforce it. And when they do finally get back out, they're worse than ever, so.
Yeah.
But
they need to go to Guam.
In Tina's case here, she couldn't this week when they did this to her. She didn't have enough fluid in her to pee in the cup. So then they're mad at her and they want her to just spit on a thing and they can get a test from that. Well, she couldn't even get up enough spittle to satisfy them. Very dehydrated. She's been foggy, and she said that she just doesn't feel, quite right mentally. And a lot of times she doesn't feel like she has enough strength or balance to even walk from her bed over to get her meds at the medical window or to ask for anything, which is futile. They don't get it. Even to just go eat, she just doesn't feel like she has it. So these are classic signs of dehydration. And I can tell you that when somebody's dehydrated, they don't think right, they don't feel right. You get them, you get an intravenous in them. In this case, you probably want a banana pack, which has folic acid and other stuff. It's kind of a little bit of a yellow tinge to it. That's why they call it the banana pack.
Yeah.
She needs to be rehydrated. I wouldn't, and I asked for people within that have access to the prison officially through being her representatives to ask for this. But beyond that, I think that she needs to be seen by someone from outside the prison system. The local fire rescue units in that area have authority to go in and assist in the prison stuff. And I'd rather have somebody independent go take a look at her. She needs to be rehydrated. And that by itself will make you feel like you've just, changed worlds again and bring you back. You can have people that you think they're going to die any second, and just get them hydrated. And it changes everything for them, buys them critical moments. And then, she probably needs, really, even if we get her out here in the next few days, which is our goal, it has been for quite some time, but it remains our goal. She doesn't just go to somebody's house or, back to her own house, something like that. She needs to be in a medical facility immediately and do a workup and try to figure out where she's at this exact second, and then let her get her wits about her and decide how she wants to proceed to try and get her health back on track and like that. And but she needs to be hydrated right now. And I'm hoping that somewhere here we're going to find out that she did get that treatment here, and needs it immediately. So anyway.
Absolutely. Yep. She's been tortured. And at 70 years old, for the people who just came in with Tina Peters in prison and being basically put into solitary, and all the continual mistreatment they have with her, at that level of cold, which seeps into your bones, plus dehydration, you're now at heavy risk for organ failure and massive organ failure too. And it is critical.
Well, she's not in solitary now. She was put in about 24 hours. It was going to take 17 days of investigation, and we screamed bloody murder enough that the warden suddenly decided that she can get the investigation done very quickly, and decided to let her back in the general population. But the prison guards are pissed at her because she complained about mold in the showers. Well, the problem with mold in the showers, when you get mold in the showers, think about it. You have water, steam, and the mold can get into aerosolized droplets. And so you go in there to shower and you can get mold in your system. Tina could be hit by lots of different things. Her immune system already compromised from having had cancer and being a cancer survivor. She's far more vulnerable. She doesn't have the right nutrients. The food in the prison, it's mystery meat, pink number 97 dye in it to make it look like it was not rancid. And then, bread that has, it's white bread goo that, it's hard to even believe that it's actually, we could call it bread. It's not bread of life, it's the bread of death. And just a lot of things for somebody that's a cancer survivor to, she's and more frail than the other inmates. Everything piled together. And from a Colorado standpoint, she's, if she dies in prison, well, then she got what she deserved. She should be free on the streets, as the judge said, she's a danger to society, essentially. So with all that in mind, the cup is full. We need to get her out while she's still viable. Her charges would eventually be overturned, and it'll be like she should never have gone to prison and everything else. But the damage being done here, go read the letter I sent out to all my Gumroad customers. I'm sure it'll get posted, a lot of places today. I don't know where it's at, but I'm sure they have. And anybody that's bought anything over at my Gumroad site is on that mailing list, should be. So they get it. And I put something out every, month or two generally, but during this Tina thing, I've been putting stuff out about once a week or less to keep everybody apprised there. And I know that it gets posted other places, so you can find it. So.
And Juan, I put that link out into the chats as well that has that directly to the posting. It's also on the Tina Peters website that I've put in here, everybody. So just go into the chat. After the show, it'll be in the description because everybody needs to see that letter as well and share it everywhere. And if you're not on Juan's list, you can get right over to All Gumroad. So I'll just take everybody there for a moment, and then we can transition back to, you were going to mention about Guam, and I think Gitmo, Guam, a lot of people would love to hear that because as you certainly know, in these events and all the decades of service that you have provided to the world secretly and now, that not only hope, but being inspired by real information as to what is happening in this incredible plan to save the world can really lift people's spirits, especially this time at the holidays. Like I was at Universal Ostrich Farms just right after the RCMP came in with, and I wrote an article on Stand Up America US Foundation with General Valley about it. The very next day, we had shows going on about it. And the RCMP came in with the mobile command unit, the ERT. This is a SWAT team. This is only about 8 weeks ago, right there in Edgewood, BC at Universal Ostrich Farms. They issued a NOTAM, closed the airspace. I had the drone surveillance teams. They had RF jammers and a big box, white box van. And they had between 40 to 80 RCMP vehicles. And they took this mother and they took her daughter, and RFK Jr. had already went out there, and so did John Casamedis, said that, listen, we'll pay for everything. We'll give them asylum. They can come to a 900-acre ranch, come here to Florida. We'll continue the ostrich science because these eggs are showing yolks that has proteins, which might heal the big C, cancer, and a couple of other things too, flu-related. And I have to do that for YouTube that we're on. And they said no. And they took the ERT with a bullhorn, surrounded the lady's vehicle, Karen, her daughter, Katie, And they said, if you don't come out, we're sending in the SWAT team to get you. And that happened. And they were messing with everybody's phones. I couldn't have coverage 5K north, east, or south of Universal Ostrich Farms. And then their father, Katie's father, Karen's husband, who is paraplegic in a wheelchair, suffered a stroke watching the RCMP, weapons drawn, bear down on this woman, Karen, who is the same age as Tina, at the ostrich farm. And so this is happening all around the world. We just had more with Australia going on. The UK, we still have roughly 12,000 people issued tickets and in prison for not even scheduling a post, but they hadn't posted yet because of what the Five Eyes are doing. So then, Juan, with that lead up and that build up and what has been going on, what can you tell us that the public is seeing from a Gitmo military tribunal Guam facility standpoint? And if you don't mind, expand on the comment you're going down the road on first and foremost about Guam, the build out of that facility, Diego Garcia, Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, and some other things, because I think people would love to hear this and breathe a bit of a sigh of relief that there are some great patriots that have been working hard to take care of the deep state minions.
Well, that's why the last coin of 2025 that I've done over our silver coins is the Gitmo coin.
Yeah.
And it's my favorite of all the ones that we've done so far. And then Jen's favorite is what we call the Watch the Water coin. And you'll see that in the article I wrote. I don't think the article's over at Gumroad. It just was mailed out to our people, that the article I wrote, just that the Peter Tickton's letter is around there. Two separate things. But the issue at Gitmo is, if you remember Trump when he was debating Hillary Clinton, at one point he said under his breath, and she was inquiring or making a statement about Gitmo, he said, "I built it for you," under his breath.
Wow.
And that was caught and picked up. Okay. Trump's pretty coy at times. And Gitmo, I teased and ranted and taunted about Gitmo a number of times during the Biden administration, and challenged publicly Nancy Pelosi. Hey, Nancy, if you're really in charge, if Biden's really in charge, why don't you go ahead and issue a letter to the commanders down there at Gitmo that you're going to have figure eight racing and a demolition derby there at Gitmo. All the service members can join in. They can have a challenge club, whatever. They got all this heavy equipment down there that built the hospital and is expanding some of the facilities, etc. Why don't you just tell them, hey, the day's for you guys, have a competition, go knock everything down, flatten it all, and get ready to close it up. And if you're in charge, you'd think it'd be simple enough for Biden. Nancy said, close it down. Everybody said, close it down. We got to close it down. Nothing happened. In fact, the construction continued. Why is that? Because they're not in charge. They couldn't stop what's going on there. The facility has continued to be improved. They doubled the amount of space where lawyers can come in a secure setting, review documents, paperwork, recordings, etc., that are going to be used in the trial, which are of a classified nature, to defend the people that are brought in on charges. And they're anticipating something big. In fact, my chief of staff, Matt Meck, he was stationed at Gitmo for a little less than 2 years and was in charge of the team that built the media center at Gitmo. And Matt now has his own show over at PPN, Patriot Party News, with Warren, the co-owner of the news site. And so every night at, I think, 7 Eastern, 6 Eastern, I think is his show. And part of the reason for Matt moving into the public side of things with his own news show, he's got tremendous qualifications in history. He was the first pilot sent in feet dry, they call it, in Iraq.
Wow.
When we went back in the second time, A6 pilots. So they go in and try to get the bad guys to turn on their radar and try to shoot them down. When they turn on their radars, then they become targets themselves. So with these mobile radar units, they turn on their radar, and now we know where to send our missiles to attack and take them out. So it's safe for the other aircraft coming in later. So Matt's got quite a history. And
Wow.
by being in the media with his own show, he would then qualify to be in the media pool to go down to Gitmo once the trials begin in earnest, and to cover that with other media personalities. And of course, the one advantage he has is having worked there, knowing how the military process works. I would suggest and propose that even within the media, he'd be the perfect guy to. There's going to be times when everybody can't be in the room. So you'll have a representative of the pool, or a couple of them that get to be in certain situations, and then they share what they get with the rest of the broader pool, and he'd be the perfect guy for that kind of a job. Matt's runs our coalition calls weekly that we have amongst members of the coalition, and has done just outstanding service for the country. And there's other stuff I'd love to say, but I can't. But he's just a real amazing person, and I just so thankful to have him on the team. I wouldn't be able to do so much of what I do without great support like him. So anyway, we do have probably better than most insight into what's actually going on in places like Gitmo than a lot of other people would purport or claim to have. So we do kind of understand what's going on there, and we're not to the main stuff yet. You do have some of the gang leaders that were picked up right after Trump took office, who are at Gitmo now, and were filmed as they were being brought into Gitmo in their orange jumpsuits. So there is stuff going on at Gitmo, but not the high-profile players yet that are there. And there's been all sorts of trolling like it was true and a lot, and it's just not true. So deep breaths. It's coming, but it's not here yet.
Wow. And then thank you for that. And thank you, Matt, for his service. Just so everybody knows, so he flew A6 intruders on Gulf 1 or Gulf 2?
Gulf 2.
Gulf 2. And his retired full officer's title is?
Well, he's a, gosh, I have to think about it myself. I think he's Lieutenant Colonel.
Lieutenant Colonel,
Marines.
So an Air Force? Yeah.
Well,
incredible.
He's Marines. So
Marine Corps.
And I get all mixed up in that. He'll probably boss. Remember to say it this way. But I probably should go back and, I get so involved in so many other things. I don't, I don't get too sidetracked on some of the stuff, because one thing that I will tell you with Matt and so many of the other people we get to work with, they're very hesitant to push or promote themselves or their history because they don't want it about them, and that's kind of a common theme. In fact, let me just say this about Tina's situation. What's beautiful, in my opinion, I pushed hard starting a month ago, another surge. We had done this numerous times for Tina over the last couple of years, coming up in the trial and afterwards, so many things. In fact, I'll tell you a funny thing. So I'm down in Argentina, and I'm doing some stuff down there, and I'm communicating several times a day with Pat Byrne, who's a good friend. And we're working through details of what's going on in Tina's case. And we're just kind of trying to get to certain things that have to happen for her defense and the attorneys and everything else. And so I'm just leaving the country. And Pat says, by the way, where are you? we don't normally even get into those details. I don't ask him. He doesn't ask me. He says, "Where are you?" And I said where I was at, and but I just left. And he says, "Are you kidding me? I'm at the same hotel, and we are down the hall from each other,
On the phone.
probably 200 or 300 feet from
Yeah.
each other,
Yeah.
like one floor different. We've
Wow.
both been there for like 10 days." And we're
Wow.
communicating furiously this whole time, trying to work through all the details. And I guess I said something or other that made him think, I was somewhere in the area.
Yeah.
And so then he's got to sit there and he's going, were you here on the same thing I was here on? Or are you involved in some part of that? And I said, no, I'm on this other thing. We're so busy in the details of Tina, we don't even realize we're both right there, literally down the hall from each other.
That's
And
incredible.
I'm telling you, go to this steak joint. We had a great steak there a couple nights in a row, and ask for so-and-so, the waiter. It's like 2 blocks away. And, just fun stuff like that. I mean, but that's how
Very cool.
in this stuff that we may be at different times. And, that's just the fight. But anyway, at the core of it, the reason that I'm so fixated even on Tina's situation, especially right now or last month. Yeah, well, and what I was going to say is whatever happens with Tina, over the next, hours, days, weeks, no one person is going to be able to claim credit, or I did this, I did that. No, no, no. This has been a complete team effort.
Yep.
There's so many different people from so many different locations, all of the internet hosts, and then all of the people out in the chats and calling the White House, calling the governor, trying to influence stuff and keep this moving and alive. It really is a team effort. And Tina won't have just one person here or there that can stand up, beat their breast. They do. No, everybody has shown up for Tina's situation. That's what's so beautiful, including some of the national hosts. The only other thing I want to add to that is, as serious and profound as Tina's situation is, she's iconic. She is, an icon, something that you lift up, not because they're God or something like that, but somebody who's done meritorious things, that has some kind of, we aspire to somehow be like them, to serve in ways that they serve, to they're leaders. They're held out as a type that we want to be like, and things that they stand for or do, things that we want to stand for and do. And so she's this iconic figure, but it goes both ways. To the people that are in the system right now that have been doing the vote manipulation, vote fraud, these mobsters, counterfeiting votes like others counterfeited money because the votes are more valuable. She's also iconic because if you can use her like a scarecrow, like a Mad Max movie, you strap her to the front of the truck and race into the fight, and anybody that gets in your way, they take out that person, along with maybe trying to take out that piece of equipment. So using women and children as shields somehow. And so they have Tina as a scarecrow for anybody that would challenge, especially from official positions, the fraud of the way that the votes are being done. And they need her there because it's it's not just about, this is something I've had with whistleblowers over and over and over the last, 40 plus years. And that is that it's not even the individual themselves, it's the rest of the family that suffers when the attack comes. And I remember one person, very famous person, he and I were talking, and he said, if I could take back anything in my life, it'd be that hour where I confronted this particular very famous individual. Everybody in the audience would know instantly about something. And let him know essentially that the fight's on. And at that time, he just didn't understand how big the machine was. And he said, if I could take back any moment, I'm a patriot. I want to do everything. But if it was just me, whatever happens, that's what happens. It was his family. And the specific incident was his daughter was going to her senior prom. And he didn't have enough money to buy her a decent dress. And then we got that covered. And because he'd come to me and explain the problem, I said, yeah, we'll take care of it. And then, she needed transportation to go to college, and she needed other stuff. And he's in this fight, and he's been cut off from everything. This person that had been of means when he married his wife and had real resources, and they'd bled him down to nothing. And he's living off of, goodwill and help, and his wife having to work to cover everything. And, if he could have taken that back, not for himself, but for his family, because it was very emasculating for him. I get all of that. In Tina's case, you mentioned her husband. Well, the problem with her and her husband, they actually had reached a point where they decided to divorce and got through the steps because he just started going off the rails. Well, as it was going on, he deteriorated further, and then they realized, he's suffering rapid onset dementia. And so that kind of paused at a certain point. These were, sweethearts back to when she was a stewardess and he was a pilot. And he had gone into some kind of mental collapse. And so he had to be put into a home to care for him. And the divorce stuff had stopped in the course of that because then they understood what the real problem was. And at some point in here, while she was doing the fight, the state people went into the home, got him to sign a piece of paper, essentially, completing the divorce and removing her. Well, he's in a home suffering from dementia.
Right.
That's why he's there.
Yep.
So anything he signed, he was under duress. He tells Tina later in the day when she comes to visit him, she'd visit him morning and afternoon from work. That's why she had him placed at the home where he was at, so he's close by. He says, I don't know what I did. I think I did something bad. And she's like, what are you talking about? They came and I did something bad. I don't know what to do. And she's trying to figure it out. Well, they then come in using those papers and move him over to Arkansas, to a rest home in Arkansas.
Yep.
As though there's no places in Colorado they can place him.
Right.
Seriously. And that she can't reach him, and that she's put under court order. She can't leave Colorado, and blah, blah, blah. This was all done to hurt her. And he was just their victim. And she was able to be with him in Arkansas, when he passed at the very tail end. But, just those kinds of things, brutal. And they try to cause wedges anywhere they can. So Tina has paid a price. Again, go read what I wrote about the Battle of the Bulge. You'll find it. And there's other people and events that I don't want to ruin it for people that I think tied to exactly what's going on with Tina and where we're at right now. And here's the other thing. Tina. Okay, wait a second. She's iconic. If they're able to have her die in prison, or even if she gets out and she only lasts a short while, there's some implied victory for the other side. You can't protect your women. I've mentioned the movie The Jackal, the second remake of The Jackal, and Bruce Willis is the bad guy. And at a particular moment, the height of the whole movie, the clue to everything that's going to happen, he says to this detective who's dying, he's just shot her, and it's in the liver, and she's bleeding heavily. He grabs her hand, puts it on her liver, and then says, if you hold it tight, you might make it 20 minutes. If the pain becomes too intense, just let go, you'll be dead in less than a minute.
Yep.
But if you do live long enough, and you see Detective Decker, or whatever his name was, Declan, he says, just let him know that, which was Richard Gere in this movie.
Yep. Richard Gere, yep.
Let him know you can't protect your women. See, there's some iconic, there's it's a symbolism for everybody that if you can't get Tina out and free, you can't do it with enough time for her to recover and come back, then, even if you get to her, there's nothing you're going to be able to do. She's dead anyway. And so we won. And it's a scarecrow to everyone else that would ever come forward. You can't beat City Hall type of a thing. And that's why I believe that getting to Tina and saving her with enough runway left to bring her back to health is also iconic, because we don't leave our injured on the battlefield. We'll do what we can, even if a sniper got him. We're going to work the problem to try and get him without sacrificing other people there. We're going to try to get him and get him out of there, and we'll work hard to do it. We got to go get Tina. And so resolving the issues, figuring it out, as I've said, please, Mr. President, figure it out. Just figure it out. If you're not getting good advice from one group, find another group. But, and this letter from Attorney Ticton, Peter Ticton, this longtime friend of President Trump's, who has spoken to him on the phone about these things and now has taken things that he presented in writing and verbally and reduced it to this document, this letter that gives President Trump the bases to pick a lane and do something. There's something bigger that President Trump was holding for, but Tina's situation may not allow him to dial it into that. And so to buy time, we need to, just like getting her an IV, people that get dehydrated like this, just because of dehydration, can have a stroke and have permanent damage, can have heart failure and have permanent damage or die. And so just getting her hydrated can buy time while the rest of this is going on. And for the medical people, the prison people, not to recognize, even when she couldn't pee in the cup or get enough spittle to spit, to act like, and she's foggy and she's not thinking straight, that she's just trying to grandstand or whatever, for whatever reason. No. You don't have medical training precisely. You're not a doctor, and you're misunderstanding what's going on there. Your report will make you look good, but you just participated in murdering her. She needs to be seen. She needs to be treated. She needs to be treated. Forget what allows in the American prison system. You want to treat her as a prisoner of war. She deserves certain respect globally. Figure it out, please. Just figure it out. Get her out of there. So anyway,
most definitely. We have somebody in our chat on Rumble. She says, "May Gitmo be their worst nightmare ever for those who have perpetuated this crime and other crimes like this upon Tina and other."
Well, and I would say this, and I'm not trying to. It's not hyperbole. When the shoe is on the other foot, and it will be shortly, are we supposed to? They'll be screaming bloody murder. They'll have the media in their corner. Am I going to feel bad because they have good press people and great outlets to say how horrible it is for them and what's going on? I'm supposed to feel bad for them. They didn't feel bad about Tina. They were glad to see it happening. And when the shoe's on the other foot, what's it going to be like? Well, they'll be screaming the loudest of anybody. One of the things that's the most disturbing about this, I started to go there a minute ago and I got sidetracked. Why isn't this situation with Tina all over Fox? Everybody talking about it. Okay, why isn't it at some of the other mainstream media, even CNN and things like that? Look at Fox. They did this agreement with Dominion and gave them a bunch of money, and the reality is that through different corporations further up the list, they weren't really actually giving it to Dominion. It was the left hand handing it to the right hand, because some of the same ownership goes into Fox as goes into Dominion. So they reinforced a certain scenario where you can't win against Dominion, but what they really did is they got a bunch of funding in there to keep the game going. And so is Fox clean in what's going on in the vote fraud? They're helping perpetuate certain myths into the vote system and doing nothing, running, hiding under the covers anytime anything with Tina comes up. She's this amazing person who's a heroine, who's been very stoic all the way through this and held her ground, didn't give up. She was offered that if she would just essentially say she was wrong, and that Dominion was, essentially perfect, and agree that there's nothing wrong in the Dominion system, that all of this could go away. And she refused to do so. She could have stopped everything, the prosecution, everything, and she refused. So she has to think about that every day, that she could have stopped this. It's like my friend, if I could reverse one hour of my entire life, it'd be the hour that he stood up, because it was his family that ended up paying the worst price. Navy SEAL and everything else, and yet he could take it, but the rest of the family, that they didn't sign up for this. Okay. And they went through it. They didn't have a choice. They were along for the ride. The wife didn't divorce him or something, but her life was changed. Her children, their children's lives were heavily affected. They may have gone on with it, but it changed what could have been radically. As we come through all of this, there's all sorts of people with a similar story. You go talk to any of the J6ers, especially the ones that were imprisoned, especially the ones that had military background, and those that are still in some type of entanglement that the pardons didn't quite reach. They've paid unbelievably, improperly, unnecessarily, but then again, they did what they do as patriots. We're going to get through this, and we're going to rebuild the country, rebuild our brand. This mega thing isn't going away. It's going to double down, triple down, quadruple down. But, there's a lot of fighting left to do that has to be done, unfortunately. So,
yeah, most definitely one. And well said. It's persecuted patriots everywhere. And Pastor Arthur Pawlowski and I have become friends over the course of this, what's gone on these last few years. And those are part of the silver linings in the cloud as well, everybody, for what has been overtly carried out these last 6 years now. We're coming on since the COVID pandemic lockdown scams, as Juan, you mentioned earlier. And they had them go to his house, sit him down at his table with the fixers for all the political parties, the Conservatives in Canada, the Liberals, the NDPs, to pay him off, to just say, I apologize, and they would stop the onslaught. And there are so many other stories like that. So emphasizing Tina for America, Pastor Arthur Pawlowski and Pastor Derek Reimer right now for Canada. There are so many more. And to broaden the conversation a little bit here in our time, the Monroe Doctrine is what we've seen President Trump allude to and actually come out and speak about from time to time of late. We had several posts going back to even right after he had just been voted into office last December, waiting for the inauguration of 47, like this one we have on the screen, Greenland, Canada, US, all part of the US, which is amazing, which is the way it should be. We have a couple of Canadians in the chat. Take a screenshot of that and just remember, enough said. But
well, I will say this. Let me just add this one little detail. I've been saying for about a decade that before this is over, a significant portion of Canada will it's not that they become necessarily exactly this 51st state, although it's a fun idea, but we certainly close ranks in a dramatic way. I don't know that we need or that Canadians want to just become lost in America like they're lost in the Commonwealth. There's some independence there, but we shoulder up like brothers. Canada was on a track to be part of America in a constitutional way as another state, and then it got
Article 11,
intercepted along the way. Yes.
Yep. Article 11, 1777. You know, the colony of
That's
Canada
right.
is hereby accepted into the Constitution of the United States of America. So it was a colony. And here we are. And some of us, this guy included, wrote the Proclamation of Acceptance and had it signed off by a number of patriots and witnessed by a number of American patriots as well, for that fact. Because one of the key things for everybody, and I'm not here to stick on the proclamation side. But one of the key thing that you've mentioned several times over and over in the last two shows we've done this year, which I thank you for, is we're still fighting the British Empire, the deep state families, which I put into the reel. And one of the ways that they have waged the warfare is from lawfare and debt enslavement is to set up what we believe is a country or a sovereign nation, but the country is actually a corporation, and they run these as business entities. And right there, July 1, 1867, the Dominion of Canada, Crown Corporation established in Washington, D.C. 4 years before the USA Corporation was established by the 19th president, and what I personally believe was the final president of the Republic until Trump came back with America First. But you know, this is a massive takedown for the entire world of that deep state establishment, while still trying to maintain a capability for everybody to live day to day, to buy their groceries, to go out, to make sure the stock market doesn't completely shit the bed, where people are on the streets and fighting, because civil war doesn't have to be good people against bad people, deep state. Civil war can really happen, everybody. And I was deployed on Ice Storm 98. Civil war and unrest can really happen and fall apart in less than 48 hours in suburbs, in cities, just because all of a sudden you don't have lights, access to groceries, payment systems not working. Like, there's so much of our society that we are dependent upon. And here we are right now to ensure that while the plan to save the world, like Q has mentioned, continues overtly and covertly, we still have to function as a society and prepare ourselves for the next steps. Am I wrong in saying that? I know you.
No, that's totally correct, because the one thing I want everybody here, you know, I'm talking to an international audience in large measure, and I want everybody to understand this. This isn't just about America. In fact, the people that we have in physical custody, I've said it numerous times, but it bears repeating again in this context. The people that cook the vote, Venezuelans under direct control of Cubans, who themselves in the earlier years were directly under control of Russians and then later handed off to China. Those groups, we have the key players in physical protective custody here in the U.S. They're already testifying before grand juries. They'll be testifying before Gitmo judges before this is over. They have said very specifically that they flipped the vote in 71 countries and put leadership up and down the ballot into place in 71 countries beyond the U.S., besides the U.S. When we get justice, you know, there's a scripture, justice begins in the house of the Lord, okay? The cleansing of our national temple church gathering place, you know, begins here at home, but it doesn't end here at home. In order to go out and be of service into the world, to help others who are likewise captured, afflicted by these pirates, pirating the command, the helm of the ship of state of entire countries through these fraudulent votes. In order to help them, we first have to get ourselves under control, stabilized. When you're in the airplane, if the oxygen masks deploy, you're told to first get the oxygen mask on yourself and then help the ones around you. Why? Because if you don't get yours on, you could pass out trying to get somebody else and not accomplish either. We have to get America's situation, that is a captured operation, also under control, and then we go out and help others around the world. We want to be our brother's brother. We don't want to be our brother's keeper. We're not doing this to take control, to hijack, to be the next slave masters, slaves no more. We're doing this to also not just do it for our own good into these other countries, for the oil in Venezuela, which is richer than Saudi Arabia and stuff like that. No, we're doing it because if we have another appointment I have to get to pretty quickly here, I apologize.
Sure.
Help others and they stand up on their own. Now we don't have to be our brother's keeper. We're our brother's brother, and we work together. We're going to take back control of the helm of the ship state of the world, of all of these ships across the sea. And there's bigger fights that are coming for the planet. Once we've stabilized our situation, help these other people, then we can go after the monsters that are still trying to take over the planet. These people who are working under Satan, Lucifer himself. Yeah. That's fights yet ahead. But Canada operating essentially as an extension or territory of America, but yet its own thing, some other greater alliance. I think that's out there in the future, and the same also with Australia and New Zealand, Greenland. There's something further yet to be done, and I'm looking forward to that. But first, we have to get control of our own republic here, and we're going to do that. It's happening right now. Things are going to happen every day. And as an iconic symbol of the fight, someone that was there first, put it all on the line, right down to the bone, Tina Peters. I don't need her as a memory. I don't want to have some empirical victory, but she's not here to enjoy it for us and all the things she did. I want her here. I want her to be able to breathe the air, savor, enjoy the moment as we retake control of our country and see justice meted out to those who have fraudulently frauded themselves into power. So. Yeah. Anyway, I've got to sign off. I've got something else I have to get to here, and but can I just say a prayer with everybody? Everybody, let's just pray for President Trump. Pray for justice in the land. All right, Father God, I thank you for all the beautiful fellow patriots here and across the world seeking justice. Your word speaks of those that pursue justice, who will be valiant for justice' sake. Tina has been valiant, and she has fought the fight. And the baton is passed, and we are in the fight right now. We have this beautiful moment to see justice executed here in our land. We thank you for President Trump. We pray that he would have excellent advisors and that he would be able to choose between the options to pick the very best option, but that option being a way of freeing Tina and getting her from under the thumb, under the grip of those tyrants who have placed her in prison, and that you would give us exactly the right choice for Tina, where she should be while she regathers herself, exactly the right assistance to regain her health so that she can be with us in the next steps in the fight as justice is meted out. And those who have hijacked America and hijacked countries around the world through their frauds are themselves captured and stopped from their evil and tried and justice done in each of those cases. Those that presided over the deaths of millions under the fraud of COVID and the shots and the masks, that we would be able to enjoy freedom, and we don't gloat over those that suffer, that tried to take us over and their own suffering, but we do enjoy that justice is done and that they're stopped from their evil. We pray for your protection, everyone here in this audience. I pray that you would give them physical protection, both physically in this world and in the spiritual world beyond, angelic divine protection, that you would watch over each one of them in every area of their life, including their extended family who may not even understand what's going on, that you would buy time for each of them to allow truth to permeate into their families and them to understand why we're doing what we're doing, even where it may not be understood now. Beyond physical protection and spiritual protection, I pray that you would make perfect provision for each one in these difficult moments, these economic the economic tumult that we're in and what's about to happen, that those here would be given guidance, wisdom, insight, that it would come from you, Father God, that it would not be confused with any man or person, even if there's some that may vocalize things, but that you would give guidance that suits your purposes to each person here, so that they have all that they need to get through these next moments, not just to survive, but to prosper for themselves and those around them, so that they may be the head and not the tail in the events that are coming. I pray you would help them with their children and grandchildren, that they would be beacons by the way they carry themselves and operate and do and speak, that as those children and children's children grow up, they will recognize that you were present in these people gathered here. When others didn't get it, they did. And that you would make them able to be seen as having been on the right side of history and iconic themselves, just as Tina's iconic. We thank you for this place to meet, the electronic operations that allow us to communicate clearly between each other, even when others are unable to communicate, that we have clear communications and can vocalize these thoughts here. We thank you for all the people, all of the things that have come together to allow this broadcast to take place. And then we pray for Brad and his family, that would be able to travel freely, and that provision be made within the legal arena, even from President Trump, to allow free travel and transit in these critical moments. We ask all in your name, Jesus. By the blood of Christ, make it so. Amen.
Amen. Mahalo to you, Juan. Mahalo to everybody. Thank you, sir, for your service. And God bless you and Jennifer, your lovely wife, and your families.
Yes. Yes, yes, of course. Thanks, everyone.
Well, and everybody, please get
We'll
a
talk
hold
soon.
of Juan with his information. I bought 2 coins earlier in the broadcast, and we were able to leave a tip to you. So that's about all I can handle right now. But here we are, everyone. So with Juan, you can get in touch with him, all of you, over at the 2 websites. Now, this is his wife, Jennifer Mack News, on the front. You can see here, and the link is in the description. We have all the information for Tina Peters. And earlier, I had shared a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, this is the video that Jennifer had put together, the Free Tina Peters Hallelujah song. So you can go to that link. You can play that video. It's about 13 minutes. Absolutely beautiful, really endearing, as well as all the information is in there. And you've seen in this entire broadcast what we've been doing the entire time, with the link to call the White House, the phone number to call the White House. But you can also call, there's Governor of Colorado, Jared Polis, Constituent Services, the front desk. You can swarm their phone lines. That is Attorney General Pam Bondi. That would be next. So the first thing would be the White House to voice your opinion, to free Tina Peters, and all the other main switchboards. And again, there's the White House right here. to free Tina Peters. Plus, you can get amazing, very cool swag and stocking stuffers, I would say, for, I love this, we remember JFK and Junior in a queue. Brilliant. For Christmas and the holidays, which are coming up. All right. And all of Juan's information is also on there. Link to the website, link down below the description. That is the man again who said silver would be $50 an ounce before summer's end, and pretty much had it. Made it happen. Incredible man. I've been blessed to meet him in person. And once again, for all of you who know the story, the F-16 flyovers, I'm going to play that video for you right now because it's thanks to that man. This happened in Cheyenne, Wyoming. So stand by for a second as we pull the video and enjoy the Screaming F-16 Falcons at the Kiwanis Community Center in Cheyenne, Wyoming.
Just for you. They said, oh, there's a gorgeous woman in black on the she forgot near the lake.
And that was the end of the F-16's 8 flyovers. And if you noticed me in amongst the crowd there, had good old Canadian plaid shirt on representing a few years ago. Once again, if you know the story, you know how symbolic that is to have 8 F-16 fly over you at 150 to 200 feet off the deck in a residential area. And right after that, about a minute later, the C-130 started. And then we had Black Hawk helicopters for 5 hours. Thanks to that man who you just heard from, who will be back on the show in the next few months, hopefully a little bit sooner, but he is incredibly busy and at one of the highest levels of patriots delivering intel for all of us. Such a blessing to be here. Thank you all. I see thank you from Quebec in the chat. Kim in Wisconsin, beautiful. Thank you as well. May God protect all of you too. Thank you all of you on Rumble in the chat as well. And I hope you have a lovely holiday coming up. It's, of course, not the end of the shows this week or next week, but this is an incredible show to free Tina Peters, who is a symbolic, persecuted patriot, heavily persecuted patriot, who is really showing incredible courage and divine light and bravery despite everything that Satan is throwing at her through his minions at every level. I look forward to the day that she is free, that lovely woman. I've saved all of our texts on my phone that I've had with Tina. It goes all the way back to February 4th, 2024. That's almost 2 years ago when she came into the scene with what was going on. And this is just unjust. God bless you all. Thank you for being here. And we will see you on the next show tomorrow with an incredible, stay tuned to our socials, another name that you all love. Until then, bye-bye. All right, you sovereign souls, now is the time to protect your money with gold and silver if you already have not. And if you are and you have a chance to do so, I highly encourage to do so even more, because gold and silver will launch the golden age, which Commander-in-Chief Trump has continuously referenced.
The dollar is going down, and it's not a pretty picture, and it's not being sustained by proper policy and proper thinking. This was an opportunity, and maybe an opportunity to show people what's happening with the dollar so that we can do something about it.
Get some if you can. BuddhaLovesGold.com will take you to our partner Goldco. They have over 6,000 five-star reviews. This is why now is the time to buy gold and silver, because we have thousands of Americans buying gold today. The rising inflation has reduced our purchasing power. Dysfunctional politics don't work for us. The US dollar has lost over 97% of its value since 1913, while the price of gold has increased over 9,000%. Silver has fared well against the dollar too, with the silver price increasing over 4,500% since 1913. It's about wealth protection. Physical precious metals act as a hedge against dips in volatile markets. Go over to BuddhaLovesGold.com. That's www.BUDDHA, BuddhaLovesGold.com. You will download your free silver and gold guide today, and our great people over there at Goldco will take care of you. That's BuddhaLovesGold.com. You'll see a picture of me right on there, Brad Wozni. And once again, BRICS is the new financial system. Asset-backed precious metals is the way of the future. This is about financial control. Diversifying your assets with gold and silver puts you in control of your wealth at BuddhaLovesGold.com.